When can you say no to a drink in Russia? Never. And don't even think about smiling at that stranger. From strict rules for whistling to a weird reason for taking off your shoes, here are the things you should never do in Russia. In the West, especially in America, we love to talk about politics, which includes criticizing our government and our politicians. We all consider ourselves to be patriots, but other than that, we're pretty polarized about which way the nation appears to be moving and which politicians are most responsible for destroying our country. It's kind of natural to take some of that with you on vacation, but if your destination is Russia, especially after their invasion of Ukraine when laws were changed to make some criticism illegal, the tourism site Travel Mono recommends keeping any criticism of Russian politics that you might have tightly under wraps. So no comments about Russian election interference, and definitely don't make fun of shirtless Putin on a horse. Russians are also very patriotic, but to them, patriotism means not making fun of or criticizing the government and its leaders. And it's especially obnoxious when a foreigner shows up to do the criticizing. If you're going to be in Russia in the warmer months, you don't have to worry too much about this rule because Russia actually gets pretty hot in the summer and you're not likely to be wearing gloves. But during the colder seasons, gloves are a whole lot more common, even necessary. Still, there are occasions when you're simply not allowed to wear gloves, and no one in Russia cares how cold your fingers are. According to the Moscow Times, one of these occasions is whenever you are shaking hands. But why? Because from the Russian perspective, you aren't wearing that glove out of a desire to have a warm hand, you're wearing it because you don't want to touch the other person. You can probably see why this might be considered a bit rude, and really, a handshake only takes a couple of seconds and then you can put your glove back on.
If there's one thing Russia is known for, it's vodka.
If you go to Russia, expect to be offered a drink. And according to Public Radio Exchange, when you do go to Russia, don't expect that you can just say, "No thank you, I don't drink." They will just think your refusal is a sign of rudeness. And if you ever do let that glass get down to less than half full, expect a refill. So, if you don't want to get heavily intoxicated, nursing your drinks while you're in Russia is a really good idea. But if the drinks keep coming, what do you do with all the bottles? If you're intending to do any imbibing, there's another old custom you should know about. Well, superstition really. Superstitions pervade the world, and Russia is no different. A 2013 poll found that more than half of Russians surveyed believed in things like omens, astrology, prophetic dreams, and bad luck. One such superstition has to do with empty bottles, specifically empty bottles that once had alcohol in them. According to the Moscow Times, Russians believe that an empty bottle left sitting on a table is an omen of financial hardship, or maybe even grief and suffering. Don't worry though, no one expects you to get up and deposit it in a recycling bin or anything. Traditionally, you just put it on the floor. No one is sure where this superstition came from, but it's thought that soldiers brought it back from France after the Napoleonic Wars. When eating in Parisian restaurants, the soldiers figured out that their waiters would charge them for the empty bottles on their table rather than for the full bottles they got from the bar, so they started leaving a few bottles on the floor to lighten the bill. For some reason, Americans enjoy your mama jokes, even though most of them are notoriously unfunny.
We all get it. My mom was a great big fat person. Hilarious.
And yet, there still seem to be thousands of variations of them, and we still all seem to have at least one friend or family member who insists on telling the latest. If you have a your mama joke in your pocket, you'll want to avoid throwing it out as an icebreaker while you're in Russia. Russians are almost universally unamused by jokes about a person's mother, or even a person's father. In fact, according to the site Russia Beyond, you might be better off just not making jokes at all when you're in Russia, because the Russian sense of humor doesn't really line up with the American one. Most Western superstitions about bad luck are specific to the person who offended the tradition. Walking under a ladder, for example, only gives you the bad luck. Same with opening up an umbrella indoors. But in Russia, violating the rules of superstition sometimes means dragging everyone else down with you. So that's why you really do have to know all the Russian superstitions before you spend time there. According to the online Russian language school Enjoy Russian, you should never whistle indoors because, for whatever reason, whistling is associated with financial hardship. It's especially bad form to whistle in someone else's house because it's not just you who might suffer financial misfortune, but also your hosts.
We respect our elders.
Like most long-running superstitions, no one really seems to know where this one came from. The West has a similar rule about not whistling indoors, but its rule is not attached to a bad luck thing. This is really just common sense no matter what country you're in. Whenever you're invited to someone's home, you should bring a bottle of wine or a nice dessert to share with your hosts. If you're not already doing this, you might want to start.
To new beginnings.
According to Russia Beyond, when you're invited to a Russian home, you're expected to bring something with you, typically a food or drink item that will be served with the meal. Make sure it's something you actually enjoy. If you're not a wine drinker and you brought a bottle of wine, your host might be annoyed at you for refusing to partake. There are some other do's and don'ts that household guests have to remember. For example, do bring alcohol, but don't bring vodka because your host might think you're insulting them. Do bring flowers for any woman in the house, but not yellow flowers or flowers in even numbers. If there are any children in the home, it's customary to bring something for them too, like a small treat or a fun activity. And maybe take notes, because that's way too much to remember. In Russia, chivalry has never gone out of style. According to Russia Beyond, the Russians believe that a man has a responsibility to help a woman out when he sees her carrying something heavy. If you're a woman traveling in Russia, it's a good idea just to accept the help when it's offered. Nobody means to imply that you can't take care of yourself, they're just genuinely trying to help. If you're a man traveling in Russia and you see a woman struggling with something heavy, don't ignore it. You should offer to help. And if she's your traveling companion, you're probably not going to make many good impressions with the locals if you let her struggle with her own suitcase. If you're ever unsure what to do in a situation, just repeat what a wise hobbit once said.
I could carry it for a while. I could carry it. Share the load.
You've almost certainly seen this play out in a sitcom, a long, drawn-out back and forth where someone offers something nice but the other person can't accept it, so the first person insists. In Russia, this is all part of the tradition of gift giving. When someone in Russia offers you a gift, you should never ever accept it outright, even if it's something you really need. Instead, you should let the person offer a second time, and then you should refuse again. If that person is really serious about giving you a gift, he or she will offer a third time. And at that point, it's probably okay to say yes. But it's definitely not polite to just jump on the offer immediately. You must at least make a show of being unwilling to accept the gift, so the other person can make a show of being willing to give it to you. Russians don't believe in wearing shoes indoors. In that way, Russia is similar to a lot of Asian countries where shoes in living spaces just don't compute. It actually makes a ton of sense, really, and it's kind of strange that it hasn't actually dawned on all cultures how gross it is to walk around the house in your shoes.
You didn't take your shoes off.
Okay, I'm taking the shoes off. Okay, buddy.
Your home is supposed to be a haven from all the filth and germs of the real world, and nothing you wear on your body is quite as filthy and germ-ridden as a pair of shoes. According to Russia Beyond, you should always leave your shoes in the hallway whenever you walk into a Russian home. Your host may even have slippers for you to wear in the house. Many Russians will even change into house clothes when they come home from work because their house clothes are cleaner than anything they wore around the city during the day. After a long, hard day of sightseeing, you might be looking forward to jumping on the metro just so you can sit down for a few minutes. Not so fast, though. Many people who live in the city use public transportation, and public transportation is often at capacity. So on a crowded train or bus, there's always going to be someone who needs that seat. And unless you're elderly, disabled, pregnant, or a child, you're not at the top of that list. In fact, failure to give up your seat for someone in one of these groups is a gigantic faux pas, and you might actually get told off. That's totally not worth resting your feet for a few minutes. Popular culture sometimes portrays Russian characters as being kind of gloomy or maybe even angry all the time. But it should be literally zero surprise to find out that it's actually just a movie trope and general misconception that Russians are perpetually in a bad mood. They're not. They're just very selective smilers. According to The Atlantic, Russian people generally feel that they shouldn't smile unless they have a reason to. In fact, this is even written into their culture in the form of a proverb, which loosely translated means laughing for no reason is a sign of stupidity. So smiling at strangers is considered weird and disingenuous. Instead, the Russians believe you should reserve your smiles for your family, friends, and occasions when you have a good reason to smile. According to Russia Beyond, the Russian police can stop anyone at any time for the sole purpose of checking papers, just like in every movie you've ever seen where American travelers get into trouble in countries that aren't the US. And yes, police do tend to do this based on profiling. If they don't think you look like a Russian, you're probably going to get stopped. And if you don't have your passports, you might even be taken into custody. The Russian police can hold you for up to 3 hours while they try to figure out who you are, and that can seriously interfere with your plans to tour the Peterhof Gardens and Fountains or St. Basil's Cathedral. So don't leave your passport in the hotel because you'd rather travel light. You really don't know when you might need it.